From the outside, it looked like an ordinary house, in an ordinary neighborhood. But behind that door, an unthinkable darkness was waiting. Robert Berdella was the hidden nightmare of Kansas City's quiet streets. Behind every smile, there was a horrifying plan. Every invitation, every conversation was the final setup for a new victim. Brace yourself, because this story is real enough to echo in your ears and terrifying enough to keep your eyes wide open. Robert Andrew Berdella Jr. was born on January 31st, 1949, in the city of Kansas, Ohio. His mother was a devoted homemaker, and his father worked as a spray painter at a car factory. On the surface, they seemed like an ordinary family, but Robert's childhood was far from ordinary. From an early age, Robert grew up under the shadow of his family's strict religiosity and his father's obsession with sports. His father saw athletic success as a must, and whenever Robert failed to meet those expectations, he was punished, both physically and emotionally. At times, he couldn't escape the sting of a leather belt. At the age of 5, severe myopia forced him to wear thick glasses. Those glasses made him a target of ridicule among other children, and his speech impediment only made communication harder. Young Robert felt the pain of loneliness and rejection deeply, retreating further into himself. Doctors even suggested medication to ease his social and psychological troubles. When he was 7, his younger brother Daniel was born, quickly becoming his father's favorite. This only deepened Robert's jealousy and sense of inadequacy. As he grew older, Robert began to realize his sexual orientation, but fear and societal pressure forced him to hide it. He even dated a girl for a short time, trying to appear normal. That fear drove him deeper into isolation. By adolescence, Robert had developed a dismissive and mocking attitude toward women. On Christmas Day in 1965, while visiting relatives in Canton, his father suffered a fatal heart attack. When his mother remarried soon after, Robert's resentment only grew stronger. His solitude became complete. He was now fully withdrawn into his own world. His only refuge was collecting stamps and coins. In 1967, he graduated from high school and was accepted into the Kansas City Art Institute. Finally, he found a space where he could express himself freely and live his homosexuality more openly. Yet, this freedom also unleashed his darker side. In 1969, he killed a duck and displayed it in an art exhibition, shocking the faculty and getting expelled from school. Leaving college behind, Robert worked as a chef in a restaurant and later moved to a house in the Hyde Park area of Kansas City, a place that would eventually become the setting for his horrific crimes. As the years went by, Robert Berdella broke his silence and became a respected figure around Kansas City. He started getting involved in the community, joining local crime prevention groups and neighborhood watch programs, helping maintain safety and order in the area. His culinary career also advanced. He launched special training programs for chefs, gaining even more social recognition. By the early 1980s, he had become the president of a neighborhood association. But by 1981, he felt the urge to return to his old solitary life and decided to leave the culinary world behind. To fill the growing emptiness inside, Robert turned to art and long-distance friendships he built through letters. At 32, he fulfilled a childhood dream, opening a shop called Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. The name literally meant Jesus Bob's Strange Market. Inside, he displayed and sold antiques, accessories, fake skulls, human teeth, and occult objects collected from around the world. People around him found his eccentricities strange, but not alarming. He no longer hid his homosexuality. Years earlier, he had a brief relationship with a Vietnam veteran, a breakup that left deep emotional scars. After that, Robert began spending most of his time with young male sex workers. He formed relationships with drug addicts and runaways, claiming to be their mentor. But in truth, he controlled them, letting them stay in his home using shared expenses as a pretext to dominate their lives. Inside him, however, something darker was brewing. Deeply obsessed with the movie The Collector, Robert began identifying with its main character. And soon, he no longer saw people as individuals, but as subjects for his own experiments. Robert Berdella's first victim was Jerry Howell, the son of a family he knew. Jerry came onto Berdella's radar through his friendship with Paul Howell. A simple invitation to attend a dance contest together seemed harmless to Jerry. On the way, Berdella suggested, "Let's stop by my place for a quick drink." He spiked the drink with a substance, and soon after, Jerry lost consciousness. Berdella took him down to the basement and tied him up. The torture went on for hours and continued into the next day. Even while going about his daily routine, Berdella ignored the desperate screams coming from his own home. After about 28 hours, Jerry died. He choked to death on his own vomit due to the drugs in his system. Berdella kept the body for a while, then dismembered and disposed of it. He was disturbingly methodical. Every detail was recorded. In his stenography notebook, Berdella wrote down the victims' reactions, their movements, his own thoughts, and documented everything with Polaroid photos. To him, it wasn't just emotional perversion, it was a cold, calculated experiment. Every note, every image, was part of his twisted study. His next victim was Robert Sheldon, a drifter he had known for years. On April 10, 1985, Sheldon came to Berdella's door asking for a place to stay. Berdella agreed, but what began as a few days of kindness ended in horror. Sheldon was tied to a bed, sedated, and subjected to various forms of torture. Berdella treated him as a human experiment, pouring chemical cleaners into his eyes, damaging his nerves, and even trying to destroy his hearing. By the third day, Sheldon was dead, and his body was dismembered like the first. Over time, Berdella's cruelty escalated. On June 22, 1985, he found Mark Wallace asleep in his shed. Berdella rendered him unconscious, used high-voltage electric shocks, and after days of agony, Mark also died. His body, too, was disposed of. Next came Walter James Ferris. He was tied up and repeatedly electrocuted over several days until his body could no longer take it. He died, and Berdella once again made sure no trace was left behind. As the years passed, Berdella's so-called projects grew longer and more sadistic. On June 17, 1986, he invited Todd Stoops over for lunch. Once inside, he drugged Todd and held him captive for weeks. Berdella's goal was total control, both physical and psychological. He blinded Todd, damaged his ability to speak, and subjected him to constant pain. Eventually, Todd's body gave out. He died from septic shock caused by the extensive injuries. This was Berdella's longest and most brutal experiment to date. In 1987, he met Larry Wayne Pearson through his shop. A small argument turned deadly when Larry made a joke that infuriated Berdella. Larry was drugged, shocked, injected with chemicals, and tortured for weeks until he died. Berdella even kept certain parts of his body afterward. Berdella's pattern never changed. Keep the victims alive for as long as possible, cause unimaginable pain, document every reaction, and then perform his final adjustments. For him, it wasn't murder, it was observation. A twisted, methodical project that delayed his capture and allowed the horror to continue. Everything changed on March 29, 1988. This time, Robert arranged a paid encounter with 22-year-old Christopher Bryson. But the plan went horribly wrong. Bryson, trying to gain Berdella's trust, agreed to be tied up in front of him and endured 4 days of brutal mistreatment. When he lost consciousness, Berdella was not at home. To survive, Bryson used matches in the room to burn through his ropes and jumped out of the window. Naked, with a dog collar around his neck and a broken foot from the fall, he ran to the neighbors for help. They immediately called the police. When the officers arrived, they were met with a horrifying scene. Electric cables, ropes, syringes, Polaroid photos, and detailed torture notes scattered everywhere. In the basement, Berdella's meticulous diary was also recovered. Shortly after, bodies buried in the yard and heads stored in the freezer were discovered. The full extent of the horrors was now painfully clear. Robert Berdella was immediately arrested. Despite all the evidence, he showed no remorse. In December 1988, he was tried for 6 murders and confessed everything in a 700-page statement to To avoid the death penalty, he admitted to his crimes and received 2 consecutive life sentences. The press dubbed him the Butcher of Kansas City. In court, he did not even spare insults for his victims, referring to them as a herd of fools. To the families of the victims, he donated $50,000 through a charitable fund in an attempt to ease his conscience. But this gesture could never make up for the suffering he caused. Robert Berdella died of a heart attack on October 8, 1992, at Jefferson City, Missouri Penitentiary. Some claimed his death could have been poisoning, but this was never proven.
Robert Berdella went down in history as the Butcher of Kansas City. He did not only end 6 lives, he left behind fear, trauma, and unforgettable scars. Even when he died in prison, he remained a dark shadow in the memories of those who knew of his deeds. His story is a painful testament to how an ordinary life can turn into a shockingly horrifying end. This dark tale reminds us once again that the limits of the human mind can never truly be predicted.